So, Jimmy, you are a former CIA protective officer, Navy SEAL, and this is an area that you have so much experience in. When you saw the video that has horrified and shocked so many people around the country of the police officers and the authorities entering into the school in Uvalde, what was the first reaction you had?
I always want to default to being respectful to officers because of, the amount of respect that I have and knowing that we asked them to go into harm's way. But this one was really hard to watch. So just to be honest, the first thought I was sent the entire video. I know there's a 4 minute, reduced one. It's so hard to watch because it's so long. Um, we've
It's
said,
80 minutes, right? 80 minutes of content?
yeah, and I think staying there for 77 is the number that comes because we like to boast here in my awesome town of Castle Rock. We've got great law enforcement. We like to boast about a 3 minute response time, as did they, and they achieved that response to the school. And then sitting around another 74 minutes waiting to act, that bothers me. It bothers me a lot as a father of four. So this is honestly what came to my mind was what you see is some of the best gear money can buy. You see ballistic shields, you see ARs, you see body armor, you see all this stuff, and there was one thing missing, and that was the grit to go in there and save children's lives, and that bothered me. It really did.
Yeah, and we're not here to bash police
Right.
officers or to go after people. I think the thing that you walk away, and I have not seen the full video. I saw the 4.5 minute clip that everyone
Yeah.
else saw. And I think obviously that's a summary of this broader video. I can't imagine sitting through
Yeah.
the whole thing. And somebody like yourself who has this experience, who has a passion, and obviously what you do is training and equipping people. The big question people have, and I know some of these answers aren't out there yet, but looking at that scenario, they're wondering what in the world happened. What would
Yeah.
you say to those who are wondering that?
Many times, and I heard about this as well within this school, they just completed active shooter training. That's easy to say because it rolls off the tongue and it's kind of a lazy answer, but what does that mean? Like ask the next question, what did you do? Was it a repeatable standard? And I'm not picking on anybody. I'm just saying what we saw was the truth. Unless the video was doctored, and I don't think anybody's saying that, it was the truth. So the answer, what the solution was, problem, someone's hurting children, solution, stop them, right? So what was done in the last 30 seconds could have been done in the first 30 seconds on scene, right? I don't think that's arguable. It just means it could have been done. But if you don't want to go, it doesn't take much in your ear to stop you. The mother that broke free and saved her own kids wanted to go. So there's an example there. It's just, if this is the truth, and it is, by the way, it needs to be discussed. It needs to be talked about because we can do better than this. This has already been proven by, like I said, this isn't a Navy SEAL thing, and it's not a GRS protective bodyguard thing. But the principles are the same. That means our country has paid tax dollars to figure this out already overseas and like embassies and the like. Take the same model. That's what we've done in my business. We've taken the same principles and put them over the model of a school, and they work. It's time to look at that because it works.
Well, and you look at this scenario, you have 19 children dead, two
Yeah,
adults dead, an entire community, not to mention the people in the school, the kids in the school who witnessed this traumatized,
yeah.
for the rest of their lives. This is an unimaginable situation. So hypothetically, outside of everybody's opinions and their thoughts based on the video, what should have happened in an ideal world the minute the shooter enters the school, the minute authorities reach there within a couple of minutes? What should have happened?
So this is what's called, since Columbine, this has been worked on, and we've come up with a pretty good place to start. It simply didn't happen, meaning this. The first team that, and this is very state by state, but this is a pretty good example of what is normal now. It's called a contact team. The first officers to arrive are called a contact team. Follow-on officers can be called a rescue task force, but the contacts team is to neutralize the threat. So law enforcement, first responders, all these people have amazing hearts that want to help people. So it's counterintuitive to step over, say, a bleeding child, but they must. Why? Because it's a compounding problem. It's still happening. You can hear gunshots. I tell my students, don't think gunshot, think dead kid. Why? Because it's brash enough to make them move. It gets you moving when you think like that. So it means if the problem is that children are dying, the solution is make it stop. And there is a kind of a, you do have to say, to get to them, you got to go through me. I'm going to go in and make that decision because the solution is entering a room simultaneously through training that's been so repeated that I can replicate it. I've done this repeatable skill, and on test day, I go in, do it, and we finish this thing, right? So there is danger in that, and I absolutely understand. So there is a thing, and this is going to sound hard, but it's meant to be. I see a bit of stolen valor. You get to drive around in the car and be the police officer and wear a gun and have that authority, but it means we paid for a thing to protect my children. By the way, you won't let me go. People are arrested for trying to go, so I can't go, which means you will. So go, and they didn't. So that all of the good parts about being a police officer, which I agree, and I think they deserve more money, by the way. But now it's time for you to perform, and you didn't, and there needs to be accountability.
Well, let's talk about what you do because you are the head of Able Shepherd.
Mhm.
This is your wheelhouse, right? This is what you do. So talk a little bit about Able Shepherd and the work you do.
Absolutely. So when you break this down, because I was just listening to an interview with senators from Texas saying what can be done, and nobody has good answers. And I'm heading to Texas, and I just got on with my operations manager. Said, let's see if we can meet with politicians while we're down there. I'm about to address this with hundreds of people talking about what can be done, but it needs to go from the top up because, quite frankly, and I mean this to sting, we have bureaucrats running this conversation. That's not okay. They know nothing about this. So it's time to learn and not have a police officer tell you, we're good, we did active shooter training. Show me how. So what we've done through my experience, I've said, okay, it's not just my way is better than your way. Why? We start with this principle that we designed called USA standard, uniform, safe, and accurate. It means, are we on the same page? Are you safe? And can you really hit anything? Is it accurate, meaning correct? But also with firearms, you must be able to hit something under pressure for time. So everybody's on the same page. Then we go, what is the standard? You must say that what are the steps, not in hours. I'm sick of hearing they each had 20 hours of training. I could take 5 minutes of curriculum and make it 20 hours. It doesn't make it good. It's not a time thing, it's a
Right.
capability. So you have to train to a capability that's repeatable. And this is the biggest takeaway for anybody listening. Show me. You have to say, show me, and then go do it. Because when we're honest, that's when we truly learn.
Yeah, and in this particular situation, had they engaged and gone and it's almost a silly question to ask at this point, but had they engaged in those first few minutes and gone in, might we be looking at somewhat of a different end scenario in terms of the trauma and the death?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Not arguable just because now the facts are out. And, we spoke about this before, and I've spoke on, Hannity and all these other forums. Now we know much more, like who was alive during that time frame, and we know those people would likely still be alive. They weren't injured yet, and they weren't dead yet, and they weren't all this stuff. So this one's very hard to argue. And I get it. The mayor and whoever else can come and yell, but that's just a distraction. We know what the truth is, and it's time to face it and make it better. Because that's say when we're honest and we say this was wrong, how do we fix it? But yeah, not knowing is not necessarily your fault. Not wanting to know is absolutely your fault if you're, say, a training officer or a chief of police. And now I've even said charges coming up on the police. Don't just save those charges for police if you're talking like that, because it's all the way down the chain if we're truly talking about accountability.
Yeah, and trying to obviously looking at how the families are feeling in the midst of this,
Mhm.
the horrific pain they're feeling. I would imagine the officers are also feeling some horrific pain in the midst of this. This is not an easy situation at the end of the day. And I know that you're a believer, and so you
Absolutely.
don't often get to in these circumstances talk about this. But I want to ask you sort of an interesting question as we round out to an end here. How should we as believers, because it's so easy to get swept up into the anger and frustration of a situation like this,
Yeah.
how should we lead the way in praying for everybody involved in this and offering those invocations?
You can't get through this without truth and grace. And I've seen people take something that's not necessarily true, let it snowball, and it makes it worse. So let's find out, let's have the courage to find the truth and face that. And we need to administer grace because if you've heard the term the coward of Broward, when this happened in Florida, it was one man. Now it's like 40, right? So that's not a good title for a man. You know what I mean? For anybody, but imagine being a man carrying that where people go, that's the guy. That's the coward of Broward. He failed to act and children died, right? I can't imagine a heavier thing to carry for the rest of your life. So if you don't understand grace, this can take you down hard. These are people that have the heart to serve. So we do need to pray for them, give room for them to grow. And if we don't get better, then it's our fault.
And really just to round out this to an end, making sure that police officers, that everybody in a community, I know last time we talked, this was something that came up, that everybody knows the role they're going to play in a school
Yeah,
community, whatever that is, whether it's first aid, whatever that role is going to be, but that police officers are equipped and they are capable, as you were saying, and feel free to jump in and correct anything I'm saying here, but that when something like this happens, they know what to do, they know how to act, and every police officer in the country knows how to do that. That's a tall order, but that seems to be what we need.
absolutely. It means that, like we said, in an emergency, everybody has a responsibility, and that means everybody. It might just be take these kids, keep them quiet. It might be put on a tourniquet. It might be lead them to safety. It might be lock the door. But everybody does have a role. Some of those roles, especially by police officers, if we look at, so say you dump all the money into the equipment, but you didn't invest in your people, so they don't know how to use it. So that's not very good. Or you've got an amazing SWAT team. SWAT teams are not typically the people first on scene. So that means every patrol officer, and again, I just heard them say this, they all get this many hours of training. Well, obviously it didn't work. So if they've truly got that many hours of training, I would question the quality of the training.
Well, listen, I really appreciate your time. As always, we'll have you back again very soon to talk through these tough issues. Appreciate your time.